Welcome to the GovComms podcast, bringing you the latest insights and innovations from experts and thought leaders around the globe in government communication. Now, here is your host, David Pembroke.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to GovComms, the podcast that examines the practice of content communication in government and the public sector. My name's David Pembroke. Thank you for joining me. Today, we head to regional Victoria in Australia to speak to Lucy Ibrahim, who's the Manager of Communications and Marketing for the City of Ballarat. Lucy's been in the business for 18 years, covering brand strategy, marketing, events, and with a particular interest in tourism. Prior to working for the City of Ballarat, Lucy served as the Head of Marketing at Visit Ballarat, and she was also the Managing Director of Play Communications. Her work has been widely recognised at over 15 international and local award events. And most recently, her work was recognised with the 2020 Ad Campaign of the Year at the Mumbrella Travel Awards for her campaign, Made of Ballarat. Lucy is passionate about insight-led creative, efficient execution, and measurement to optimise outcomes. Lucy considers her most recent campaign, Be Kind Ballarat, a kindness initiative launched in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, as one of the toughest but most rewarding campaigns that she has worked on. Lucy believes that the City of Ballarat is an organisation that does show genuine care and compassion for their community in these toughest of times. She joins me on the phone from Ballarat this afternoon. Lucy, welcome to GovComms.
And thank you very much for having me.
Really interesting campaign, this notion of kindness, because one of the things I'm picking up in a lot of my reading around the pandemic, and this is globally, picking things up, throughout Europe, North America. I read an article from a source in South America the other day. This notion of kindness is moving, and that people are considering being kind not only to each other but to themselves. Where did the idea come from for you about kindness in the time of the pandemic?
Absolutely. And look, the Be Kind initiative was really born out of the City of Ballarat's pandemic planning and response. So we worked to the core principles of what the City of Ballarat wanted to achieve during the COVID-19 as it unfolded, but also the strategic principles of the City of Ballarat being a compassionate city and that being a really valued principle across the organisation and its employees. So look, when we were briefed on a community engagement campaign during very unprecedented and uncertain times, we did explore a number of different territories, and the territory of kindness for us continued to resonate because it does cover being kind to yourself. It covers being kind to others, being kind to business who are undergoing, huge areas of uncertainty with their livelihoods, being kind to frontline workers, being kind to kids. I think the notion of kindness is accessible to anyone. It can be a smile, a gesture, a hello, or it could be something more significant if you're able to provide that additional kindness. So it seemed accessible to everyone because we knew that everybody was facing extremely different circumstances, but fundamentally we were all facing a level of uncertainty that we needed a sort of an initiative to really get behind, to remind ourselves it's okay to be nervous, it's okay to be worried, but underneath it all, how can we be kind as a community?
Now, I'm interested to dig into the campaign in just a moment, but perhaps could you take us back to those early times around the discussions that were taking place and how, in fact, did this come to life? And you mentioned that you had a pandemic plan. So was this, in fact, sort of something that was, pre-baked, so to speak? Is this something that you had already considered that you, in light of a pandemic, that you were going to need a public information campaign?
Not to my knowledge. I know the City of Ballarat was well prepared in terms of crisis and pandemic planning and response, and were well prepared with a task force that was initiated as early as possible within that framework. So, they had the documentation and planning that was required from a City of Ballarat perspective. And I think where this campaign was born out of was really around the core principles of that plan. So, how do we slow or stop the spread of the impact of the virus? How do we protect the health of the workforce? How do we demonstrate leadership across the community and region? And how do we communicate clearly in a concise and timely manner? So, when the communications team were briefed on the core principles of the plan, really the need for that community engagement campaign was identified very early on in the piece. When I say it was probably the toughest but most rewarding campaign I've ever worked on, we were briefed on Tuesday, March 17th. It was at around 3 o'clock that afternoon. We were briefed by our director, Cameron Carl, and with the task to present a campaign, a full concept plan to the executive leadership team at 9 a.m. the following morning, which creative. We had the creative ready to go. We had a full sort of overview of what we had researched in terms of what our audience was feeling, some creative concepts, an overview of the media execution. So we thought we'd done a pretty good job in those few hours, and at about 10:30, he came back with the news that it had been endorsed and that it was launching at 2 o'clock that afternoon, which was the next major hurdle that we faced. But to be honest, the way that the team got together, I think we all wanted to do something that we felt was going to benefit not only our organisation and the values they had, but our community fundamentally. And so by 2 p.m., we had a website live, we had a media briefing, we had creative ready to go, we had a media plan that was, being booked in a very agile way. So the campaign was delivered in less than 24 hours. And that, I guess, just to demonstrate the notion of being kind resonated really sort of universally across the stakeholders that we brought in. So we were briefing our key stakeholders, over lunch just before the media briefing. We had our partners at Commerce Ballarat, Committee for Ballarat. We had Ballarat Health Services online, some of our key tourism products, as well as many others that were brought in, because our role, we really felt, was to curate and communicate the content that they really wanted to get out to their stakeholders as well. So it was a very speedy process, but one that we're very proud of.
Yeah, well, I suppose that's the thing, isn't it? You having those principles that you were able to sort of
Mm,
dig into, and this notion, you mentioned it in one of your earlier answers, that Ballarat is a compassionate city. So it's a principle, an underlying principle that, governs probably the behaviour of everyone there in the city, or it's something that you talk about. So, the journey from compassion to kindness is not that far.
mm, yeah.
So how quickly did you land on kindness?
Very quickly, within half an hour, we
Okay.
explored a couple of different territories, how they sort of come to life. We explored the idea of compassion to start with, and the idea of kindness came up very quickly. And we literally just said, that's it. Be kind, Ballarat. Be kind in any way you can, and here's some ideas of how to do that. Really populated itself very quickly, and the pillars formed very quickly underneath it. The idea of
Mm.
being kind to yourself, being kind to others, being kind to business, and being kind as a community. They all fell out of that, which helped us to manage the ongoing communications. We were adapting our creative and messaging daily, especially during those early weeks as the situation was unfolding. Different restrictions were being announced at different times. So again, the idea of kindness seemed to be suitable to bring to life some of the messages that we were really wanting to communicate with a sense of urgency and agility as well.
Yeah, well, I think there's that great saying, isn't there? There is genius in simplicity,
Yes.
and that notion of kindness is a universal notion. And as you say,
Yeah,
you've clearly applied it really into every area of activity across the whole of the community. So there is that applicability. So can you give me some insights as to how you then went about sort of rolling it out and how different parts of not only the council but those other stakeholders that you talk about, the businesses, the
absolutely.
community groups, how did they pick it up and bring it to life?
Look, that's probably been one of the key successes is we brought on all of the stakeholders before that media briefing and talked to them about the initiative and talked to them about the campaign and really the purpose that they had and that the role that they had in the campaign was to lead our community and region together and to communicate clearly together. So you know, there were sometimes conflicting messages that were being heard in media, for example. And so we really worked with those stakeholders, and Commerce looks after, so much in terms of our business and enterprises. Committee for Ballarat as a leadership group, Compassionate Ballarat as a group that works with a lot of our organisations, helping those in need. Ballarat Health Services is certainly as a key stakeholder. Sovereign Hill, who was undertaking, quite a transition at that time, having to close its doors. Eat Drink West, which is a fantastic initiative around supporting local producers, and really, it's for us been a campaign that has been about supporting all of those organisations as well, and supporting the messaging in a consistent way. So, one of the examples is it was I know from the Mayor of Ballarat, the CEO of Committee for Ballarat, and the CEO of Commerce Ballarat all wanted to, all really called on and urged the state government to announce the restrictions. And this was going back a few weeks and going into the phase three restrictions, really called and urged people to stay at home as a united front. And really for our community, they saw our three significant leaders on the front cover of the Courier all calling for that action. And it really gave, I think, the community a sense of, right, our leaders are really asking us, they're asking us together. We've collaborated on this. It was very authentic. It was very united. And I think that was fantastic for our local community to see that there was a consistency in the message. So from that perspective, we have weekly stakeholder meetings where everybody jumps in. We tell everybody shares what content they're creating, what messages they're looking to spread, and we all work out how we can support each other in sharing those messages, communicating the key priorities, whether it's setting up food relief drop-off points at our libraries, for example, whether it's a call to increase, for anybody who has a sniffle to get tested, working with the Ballarat Health Services this week. We're really just looking at how the Be Kind message can further support all of the fantastic work that's already happening across the city itself.
So it would seem, again, just drawing from one of your answers there, you mentioned, and it seemed to flow off your tongue, we lead our region and community together. Is that something, is that a line or a mantra that predates the COVID-19?
Look, it's certainly been a focus for the city of Ballarat. Coming from Visit Ballarat, I'll talk to my experience there. It's certainly always been an ambition to work across the stakeholders because, again, I think a community responds when the leadership of a community is aligned. They share the same vision. They share the same outcomes. And so that has always been my experience. And that's been, prior to COVID-19, there's been a real sense of engagement with stakeholders, but even more so engagement with the community. So one of the recent initiatives run out of the Economic Development Unit was the Ballarat is Open community engagement program, really asking our community, key stakeholders, key leadership, key businesses within our industry to share their thoughts on, Ballarat, its dreams, its hopes, its future, its ambition, its qualities, and ultimately our shared values of a community of how we want to sort of progress forward as a city. So it's always been my experience that There's been a sense of togetherness, unity, and community. I think that flows through some of those other strategic principles about compassion as well, a real sense of understanding that there's lots of challenges being faced by, many different stakeholders out in the community. So it's sort of the strength together rather than the division can often cause confusion and uncertainty, and we certainly didn't want that during such an uncertain period itself.
Indeed, and thinking about that though, it's a clever campaign, it's a lovely campaign, it's a simple
Mm,
campaign. Leadership coming together, standing as one, being together, both very useful. But how is it held up under the pressure of businesses closing,
mm,
livelihoods being lost? Um,
mm.
but stresses on the health system. How has the community coped?
Oh, look, it's been extremely difficult, and really, there's been some fantastic initiatives that have been run across the group. So, Compassionate Ballarat, in particular, they run a weekly mental health webinar where they get different experts from different areas to talk to the challenges that we're all facing, and they've had a really good response. It has been extremely difficult, and that's we did know that very early on two different camps in a way emerges, and those are the ones who can afford to be a little kind. They can afford to drop off food to a food relief. They can, support local businesses by ordering delivery and takeaway. You know, that they can afford to show kindness in a way that helps others. And then there'll be another group which need kindness. And whether that's through, communicating the state government food relief packages that came out really early, our own food relief initiatives, reminding people about where to access help. So all of our communications end with helpline numbers in terms of those directing people to Lifeline or Beyond Blue. It has been really challenging. We know that Commerce Ballarat have been very working with industry to kind of understand the challenges that they've faced, but also from a mental health and wellbeing challenge. We don't underestimate the impact that this event will have in the short and the long term future, which is also for us part of the program is to extend the idea of Be Kind Ballarat into the future, to continue to support as we can, whether it's a big Christmas initiative of buying Christmas presents locally and supporting some of those producers and businesses most hit. So it has been. We certainly feel that we've seen sort of the front line of some of the challenges. The City of Ballarat have announced their own sort of initiatives around supporting our residents, supporting businesses within it. So there's sort of been a separate stream of work that's gone on there, which has provided relief where possible. So it's really worked alongside, I guess, the practical ways that the City of Ballarat can also help the community during this time.
Mm. Now, you clearly didn't have a lot of time to think about the campaign before it launched. You didn't have the luxury of sort of that, reflective period that is often important to try to think
Mm.
about what's going to happen. But what has surprised you the most about the campaign?
I think probably the biggest surprise has been the take up of the campaign from other local government authorities. I think we're up to just over 10 other local governments have taken on the Be Kind creative and message, and we've supplied toolkits of for other local government authorities to take the creative, adapt it to their own city, to take the suite of everything that we've created and use it. And I think that's probably been a surprise only because it's the first time I've experienced that in my short period in local government. But I think it's also a sign of the fact that it was so universally transferable. So it was a nice surprise, Yeah, that's probably been one of its other success points from a stakeholder perspective, was just the take up and the ability to then extend the positive impact on communities on a much wider level than just the city of Ballarat.
So, in terms of those local government areas, were they closely located to Ballarat, or how far
Initially,
away were some of the requests?
no, initially it was our close partners, within Golden Plains, which is the local government authority to the south. So initially, it started off, and there is a sort of a group of Central Highlands Victoria mayors who will talk and plan and discuss these kind of issues. And it came up at one of those discussions, and our Mr. Mayor was immediately, let's get this out, let's make it really easy for them to take, let's spread that kindness, let's show them that, we can really, happily endorse and to give them the assets to take themselves. So that happened in the first couple of days of the campaign going live. I think by the Thursday we had the industry toolkit ready to be shared. And then it really extended from there. So, just through LinkedIn, through LGAs, through existing contacts we have within our council team and other council teams. That was probably the furthest away we've had is some LGAs in Gippsland, Frankston. We've had Yarra, Moreland, Bawbaw, Casey, Campbelltown all come on board. So some really significant LGAs from our perspective. So we've been really proud of that.
Fantastic. So this audience for the podcast extends around the world. So
Mm,
if someone's listening to this in some
yes.
far flung place, if they were interested in the kindness, the Be Kind campaign, would you be happy to work with them?
Absolutely. Yep. There's a website set up, and I'll share that at the end of this, which is a really simple place. You can download the assets all in usable format in artwork. So you can literally just type your own city's name in it, and everyone can be kind to their community in that way. Absolutely happy to share it as far afield as anyone is interested.
Fantastic. So where to from here? I get the feeling that Ballarat may be the kindest place on earth at some point. Would that
Uh,
be with is
We'd
that
love
is
to
that the
think
ambition?
that. Yeah, I mean, I know there's a lot of communities who've done some fantastic work. I think during times of crisis, and this is one we've as a globe we haven't faced before. I think we're all trying to do things for our communities that just make that little bit of difference. But where to from here? It's certainly something that we will be looking to extend and continue, because we know that we're still in the response and recovery phase. Really is something that's going to be mapped out and is still generally uncertain in terms of how it'll all unfold. So for us, we'll continue doing what needs to be done, what the key issues of the week are. We adapt to. This week it's about encouraging anyone with a sniffle or a cough to get tested as part of Victoria's drive to get to 100,000 tests completed. So that's this week's priority. We're trying to be kind to mums in advance of Mother's Day on Sunday, knowing that it's a difficult day for new mums. It can be a difficult day not to spend with your mum if those restrictions are still in place. So we are working as quickly and as in such an agile way that anytime anyone throws us something, we're ready to catch it and to share it so that the right messages are getting to our community in a way that will help them the most. So that's what's next. Ask me in 3 weeks' time. We might have a different answer. We are in the midst of finalising our website behind Ballarat, which is really going to just be a one-stop shop for all of the resources for our community here in Ballarat, just to make that user journey much easier for our residents as well. So lots in the pipeline, and no doubt with the continuing changing dynamics of what we're facing, we'll be continuing to just do our best to make them the best and most compassionate impact on our city.
Yeah, well, I can certainly see it used by lots of people, but maybe not the football team. They won't want to be known as the kindest team in
Well,
the local league.
maybe off the field they can be kind, and then on the field they can be competitive. I'm not sure.
So, listen, as a communications professional, what have you learnt in the last 8 weeks?
I've certainly learnt the importance of working for an organisation that holds values that you hold. So to be able to work for a CEO, for an executive leadership team, for counsellors who are truly compassionate, have a true dedication to their community. I've come from a very corporate background, FMCG and cars and games and things like that. And I think when you work for an organisation with that level of commitment to a community, it makes the work that you do uh, demanding and challenging, but ultimately the most rewarding gig you'll probably ever have. So I'm very proud to work for an organisation that demonstrates that commitment to principles and commitment to compassion.
But in terms of your, the changing of the nature of work as a
Mm,
communications professional, what have you
yeah.
learnt the importance of speed and decisiveness and making decisions? Because if you didn't make decisions quickly, this wouldn't have happened.
Oh, look, communications is a lot about going with your gut. And I think going with your gut gives you confidence to make or propose those decisions. And if those people go with their gut, you'll probably end up somewhere. Speed may not be required all the time, and you might have a bit more time to be strategic and insight led. But I think on some things, going with your gut gives you the ability and confidence to be in market much more quickly. So every brief is a different opportunity to do things differently. This was definitely the quickest I've worked on.
Mm. So, in terms of research, and have you had the beyond the anecdotal feedback, and obviously, clearly the success by the community getting involved, community leadership getting involved, your near
Yeah.
neighbours in the local government areas picking it up. So there's lots of measures of success already there. Have you had any
Mm.
sort of um, harder evidence that can tell you that that message of kindness is getting through?
Look, it will be measured in due time. I mean, we are 7 weeks in. I think for us, there are measurements around industry in terms of businesses that have been involved, businesses that have shared the message, and measurements in terms of the hard metrics of media, website engagement, all those kind of things. We do know that it at the moment it's one of the most has the highest length of engagement within the current website format that it's in. So it shows that the content is sticky. People are exploring it. They're looking at multiple areas within the site, etc. So there's some of the metrics that we're using so far, as well as with the media partners to then measure sentiment. I think we did some social scraping recently. Overwhelmingly, the sentiment from our community has been positive in terms of their social mentions and commentary. So we're certainly using that as a measure of success because it was all about really the community in the first place. And the last check that we did, probably about 2 weeks ago now, was the public use of the hashtag Be Kind Ballarat. And it was already up above 700 posts from businesses, community, other stakeholders in terms of engaging and spreading that message. So the fact that we had local businesses saying, this initiative has really, turned things around for us. Be kind to business Ballarat. It's brought our community together. Those sorts of metrics are really critical to us as well.
Fantastic. So where can people learn more about Be Kind Ballarat?
Well, always on our City of Ballarat website, so ballarat.vic.gov.au, and there is a LinkedIn page as well, and so I'll share that with you afterwards.
Fantastic. Well, Lucy, congratulations. Certainly the story resonates with us here at Content Group. Our values as a company are to be kind, be curious, and be remarkable. And certainly when
Yeah.
we saw, this kindness campaign, it certainly resonated with us because I think it really lies at the heart of being, a, a good human being, and
Yeah.
to think that you've been able to grab that universal uh, truth and be able to use it at this time of great need and to make it so relevant, so effective, and so useful. I think that simplicity, the universality,
Mm.
to hold the community together at such a difficult time. It's a wonderful campaign, and I think in the lead I read out that you've won 15
Mm.
international or local awards. Maybe 16's not too far away
Uh,
for you as well. So congratulations to you and your team, because I'm
yeah.
sure you've led plenty of people who've helped.
Absolutely, all down to the team on this one, and I know that we all feel very privileged to have worked on it.
Okay, thank you very much to Lucy Ibrahim. What a fantastic story there. And what about the speed? What about you know, here's the task and you've got until tomorrow morning, guys, to come up with it. But what about the fact that they already had the principles in place that were relevant to this particular community, and compassion sat at the heart of it? So they had a place to start. They weren't just turning tables over trying to find what they stood for. The city of Ballarat stood for something, and you can see that very short journey. And as Lucy said, it took them probably less than an hour, a couple of things, and it's like, bang, we're on it. Trusted the gut. What about that? What a great insight there is. That's so true. In the 30 plus years I've been in this business, you just know, that you need the data, you need the insights, but ultimately you just know when an idea is right. And I can just see the room light up, everyone going, yeah, that's it, let's go. And the universality of it. I know I mentioned that a few times during the pod, but sensational. That's just it applied everywhere, and just judging on the metrics that Lucy was able to roll off there, you can see that it's resonated across the community, and it's gone, and everyone's used it to play their role at such a difficult time. So great stuff, clever stuff, smart stuff. Really great work there by Lucy Ibrahim and the team at the City of Ballarat. So congratulations to them. What a great story. A fantastic story. That's why I love GovComms. There's nothing better. And really, the insight there, Lucy said in her career, she's worked in FMCG, she's worked in games, she's worked in other places, but this is a place where she gets that meaning. And obviously when she has that meaning, she can do great work because it comes from, that the center of her being, so to speak. So anyway, so much great chat. So I'm really grateful for Lucy to turning up today, and I'm also grateful to you for coming back once again. What a great chat with the City of Ballarat, the Be Kind to Ballarat campaign. Yeah, wonderful. So, thanks for coming back this week. We'll be back at the same time in 2 weeks. Next week, we'll be launching back into the vault again to bring out some of the old interviews for you. We're now sort of 200 and something. So, great chats that we've had over the years with many great people involved in the great field of government communication. So, stay tuned for that. But for the moment, very grateful for you to come back. Very grateful to Lucy Ibrahim for telling her story today. But for the moment, it's bye for now.
You've been listening to the GovComms podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate and subscribe to stay up to date with our latest episodes.